My boyfriend had been admitted to King Bi for the third time. Yet he still chose to repeat his studies. Only because every time he repeated a year, the girl next door, his beloved sister Sylvia, just happened to need his 200,000 and do on repeat school subsidy. The first time, Sylvia's family needed money for surgery. The second time, she couldn't find a job and needed startup capital. And now, her brother didn't have the money to marry. They wanted to marry her off in exchange for a 200,000 and bride price. His parents had no other choice. To cut off his ties with Sylvia, they asked me to lure him to King Bi under the pretense of travel. Who could have expected that after Sylvia married, she would suffer domestic abuse? And, unable to endure the humiliation, choose to end her life? My boyfriend never mentioned Sylvia again. And I thought he had finally let her go. But years later, on the eve of our wedding, the groom-to-be tied me up. He slipped a wedding gown onto a mannequin plastered with Sylvia's photograph and made me witness their wedding night, their bodies intertwined from dusk till dawn. Afterwards, he used the mannequin's hand to stab me again and again. If it weren't for you, how would Sylvia have been forced into marriage? Forced to kill herself? Your death is the best wedding gift I can offer her. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day he chose to repeat his studies for the third time. Sorry, Sonoko, he said. I'm afraid you'll have to wait for me at King Bi for another year. I smiled. It's fine. Sister Sylvia is so pitiful, help her as much as you can. After getting the money, Sylvia's family no longer forced her to marry. Lucian immediately turned to me with a saintly expression. Saving Sylvia makes me feel like my life finally means something. On the screen, I clapped enthusiastically to match his mood. You're amazing. 200,000, and for one repeat year I won't make that much even after graduating. If you keep repeating a few more years, you'll learn more than some people make in a lifetime. My mock praise hit him just right. Feeling the moment was perfect. He asked for money. Sonoko, didn't you say that once I get into King Bi, you'd take me on an overseas trip? Just cash it out for me. I promise I'll work even harder next year. I curved my lips in a stiff smile. A true genius, you earn money from school and still remember to fleece me for benefits. In the past 2 years, to avoid ruining his mood, I had given him 50,000 and each time. But this time, he wasn't getting a single cent. Hearing this, Lucian's face darkened instantly. Sonoko, not only do you refuse to give 200,000 and to save Sister Sylvia, but you're throwing a tantrum at me? I don't want my girlfriend to be someone who lacks empathy and tolerance. I stared coldly into his eyes. You just want money. Since when do I owe you anything? Anger surged in his gaze. Then he let out a mocking laugh. Of course. Girls like you from rich families would never understand how hard life is for me and Sister Sylvia. Keep this up, and I may have to reconsider our relationship. Heh. I had been waiting for that. Fine. Let's break up. His usual tactic backfired instantly. Lucian's eyes widened. After all, he was always the one who proposed the breakup before, and I was always the one coaxing him back. Now, losing face, he spat out one last line before hanging up. You'd better not come crying to reconcile. In my previous life, after his third college entrance exam, I had helped his parents secretly send him to King Bi under the excuse of a road trip. I even, out of pity, told him that Sylvia was being abused in her marriage. Lucian said he wanted to cherish the present and couldn't save her. Later, Sylvia committed suicide. And he blamed her death on me. Right before our wedding, he put a wedding dress on that mannequin with Sylvia's picture and held a wedding ceremony. Then used the mannequin's hand to kill me. Sonoko, you're just lucky to have been born into a wealthy family. Besides that, what makes you worthy of Sylvia? It's all your fault. You made me lose the woman and child I loved most. Only then had I realized Lucian had only ever wanted my money. His heart had always belonged to another woman. He had even gotten her pregnant behind my back. I had helped him get into college. Yet he painted me as the villain who killed the love of his life. Not this time. To hell with this scumbag. Repeat school? Help his first love? He can do whatever he wants, just not with me. After breaking up with Lucian, I threw myself into my internship. One weekend, His parents suddenly called me. Sounding devastated. I knew the trending news had frightened them. King Bi had just announced the cancellation of a student's admission for repeatedly taking exams to extort repeat year subsidies. So Noko. How can you be so heartless? You knew Lucian was repeating the year for that woman again. Why didn't you stop him? Lucian was prideful. He listened to no one. So his parents always used me as their messenger. If even you can't stop him, how am I supposed to? If I could, would he have repeated this many times? His mother immediately began veiled threats. So Noko. You're already Lucian's woman. How can you not think for him? It's just 200,000. Act cute with your father and have him pay the compensation to the school principal, then Lucian won't have to repeat. Huh. They finally showed their abacus. The first 2 times they didn't want Lucian to repeat. They had already suggested my father pay the money. I had indeed been fooled once and mentioned it to my parents. My father didn't blame me, he simply warned me calmly. So Noko. If Lucian's family dares to make you pay 200,000 and for him once, what about next time? When Sylvia needs money again, are you going to cover for her too? In this life, having seen Lucian's true face, I refused without hesitation. Then I heard Lucian's furious voice on the phone. So Noko. You cold-blood woman. You won't even pay 200,000 for me? I regret not breaking up with you earlier. His mother tried soft persuasion. So Noko. You silly girl. Just throw a tantrum. Cry a little. Threaten to hurt yourself, I already taught you the tricks. If you really don't have the money, have your dad mortgage the house and car. 200,000 and is nothing. As long as you get the money, I promise Lucian will take you back. I laughed silently. This family really thought I was their personal ATM. Mortgage my dad's house and car for Lucian? What is Hemi father's biological son? I could imagine their faces twisting in rage. Even through the phone. Lucian's father, feeling cuckolded, roared. So Noko. You're just a cheap woman, my son has already used up. Don't push your luck. If you can't bring out 200,000, I'll have Lucian get engaged to Sylvia immediately. Don't even dream of marrying into our family. In my previous life, they kept me as their money tree and still refused to give Sylvia a title even after she got pregnant. In this life, I would do them a favor and send the 3 of them off together. After I hung up, my father, who had appeared without me noticing, patted my shoulder. That brat from Lucian's family eats inside and shits outside. You should have left him long ago. You really have a sharp eye. Dad. I was blind before for not listening to you. Confirming the breakup. He smiled so wide his crow's feet deepened. Didn't expect you to grow up after a few years at university. So Noko. Of course I grew up. Heaven gave me a second chance. And I intended to kick Lucian, that rotten pile of mud, out of my life for good. The public opinion across the internet escalated rapidly. And curses directed at me almost flooded the comment sections. How dare you bully a repeat student just because your family is rich? Is there any justice left? Bullies don't deserve to get into Xianxia or Peking University. Why hasn't the school expelled him yet? At school, someone crossed out my photo to vent their anger and posted these altered photos on every bulletin board. Concerned for my physical and mental safety, my teacher advised me to take a temporary leave of absence. After returning to my hometown, Lucian immediately asked to meet me. If you apologize to me now, I can still let you off the hook and let you continue studying at Xianxia or Peking University. Pretending to be frightened and remorseful, I lured him into my trap. Is an apology enough? Lucian glanced at his phone. Then awkwardly stated his terms. 500,000. I'll delete the audio. Moments later, a message popped up from his mother. 500,000 and had arrived. After watching Lucian delete the audio from every major platform, I was just about to stand and leave when he suddenly called out behind me. Hold on. That 500,000 and only covers deleting what I already posted. 1 million if you want to buy the audio outright. Otherwise, who knows when I might feel like posting it again. My fists tightened, rage trembling in my fingertips as I stared at the shameless man. Anything else? Can you just say it all at once? Lucian hesitated for a moment. Then, seeing another notification pop up on his screen straight and with newfound confidence. Since you offered, Add another million. Consider it a gift for me and Sister Sylvia. Grinding my teeth, I agreed. Not long after, he urged impatiently. It's only 2 million. Don't tell me your dad can't cough up that kind of money. If it doesn't arrive soon, I'll release a few more clips. Let's see how you keep your precious reputation at King Bi. I checked my watch and calmly counted down 10 seconds. All right. 2 million received. After confirming, Lucian lifted his brow smugly. If you'd been this cooperative earlier, how could I ever bear to break up with you? I let out a relieved breath and pointed toward a camera not far away. You think you're the only one who knows how to record? Extortion is a criminal offense. Before Lucian could react, his mother's frantic voice blasted through his phone. It's over. Son. Your teacher just called your names all over the news. From this year on, no university will accept you. Lucian refused to believe that a born genius like him could truly be rejected by every university. Right after the call from his mother, he started frantically searching for news reports. When he saw his own name in the headlines, he exploded. No way. It's fake. My scores are so high, how could no school want me? Then, heading for my obsession. Like a madman, he smashed his phone against the ground. In my previous life, I might have wondered why he suddenly changed so drastically. But now, nothing about him surprised me. I had already witnessed the far more terrifying version of him. The one who held a knife in the mannequin's hand and stabbed it into my body again and again. No matter how I begged, he only cursed me harder. His arm, never stopping. In this life, he got what he wanted: an engagement to Sylvia, the woman he treasured, and the child he wished to keep. I was genuinely curious. A man who couldn't even get into university, paired with a Sylvia who couldn't find a job, what kind of wonderful future could they possibly have? Suddenly, Lucian hurled his shattered phone in my direction. Fragments of the casing sliced across my cheek. So no go. You set me up, didn't you? You hired reporters to expose me taking money, ruining my chances of ever going to university? Lucian got half of it right. The reporter came to me first. He wanted to expose Lucian taking money, and I needed proof that Lucian had slandered me. If Lucian hadn't let his greed swell beyond control, how would he ever have walked straight into the trap? Seeing his expression turned darker by the second, his fist lifting toward my face, I closed my eyes, suppressing my fear, waiting for the pain to land. But the next moment, someone yanked me aside. My father. So no go. Are you stupid? Why didn't you dodge? A smile tugged at the corner of my lips. Dodge? Why would I dodge? If he hit me hard enough, I'd have all the evidence I needed to put him in prison. And right behind my father, the police arrived, body cameras and all. They must have captured Lucian trying to punch me. As soon as Lucian was taken away, his parents began calling incessantly to plead. So no go. You and Lucian have been together so many years, can't you just forgive him? I smiled politely and reminded them. When he accused me of bullying him and demanded money, did he care about our relationship then? Lucian's mother sobbed uncontrollably. So no go. Please help him. Even if not King Bi, at least help him get into some other university. I covered my mouth, unable to hold back a laugh. He's still thinking about going to university? You'd better save your money to hire him a good lawyer and shorten his time in detention. Lucian's father panicked and instantly started treating his son like some rare treasure. So no go. You're a good girl. You're just angry he got engaged to Sylvia. Right? Uncle promises you if you help solve Lucian's situation, I'll call off their wedding and make him marry you instead. Truly astonishing. Even now, this family believed I wanted to marry their son. You think I'm stupid enough to marry a man who slandered me, extorted 2 million from me, and tried to hit me? Am I a masochist? Or just mentally impaired? Things didn't go exactly as I hoped. Lucian didn't end up in prison for extortion. The hidden camera was ruled an invasion of privacy and couldn't be used as evidence. Other than returning all the money, he was ordered to publicly apologize for the fabricated audio. After 15 days in administrative detention, he was released. But during the university application period, not a single institution accepted him. And that result satisfied me just fine. At least I'd never again have to see Lucian strutting around in front of me, bragging about his scores and how much money he could earn. Overconfidence had finally destroyed his life. Lucian appeared in front of me, unshaven and disheveled. "Sonoko, I didn't expect you to have to faces." I thanked him for the compliment. He could fabricate audio. But I wasn't allowed to record video? At least I played fair, I didn't edit anything. "You were the one who lost your mind with greed. I simply showed the world who you really are." The man lowered his head, a flicker of guilt in his eyes. "It was Sylvia. She threatened me with the baby. She suddenly demanded the bride price. Otherwise, why would I ask for so much money? I've always liked you. It was my parents who forced me and Sylvia together. I couldn't be bothered to pick apart his lies. Your family's mess has nothing to do with me. You extorted millions from me. And now you want me to feel sorry for you?" Lucian avoided my gaze. "Sonoko, just wait for me. 1 year. My parents love grandchildren. Once Sylvia gives birth, I'll break up with her and marry you." His shamelessness reached a new record. "You didn't even get into university. And you expect me to become a stepmother to your child?" Lucian finally slumped, defeated, and walked away. Before leaving, I reminded the security guards at the community gate to recognize his face and make sure not to let that man in again. To my surprise, the man had been banned from the premises. But during my school defense presentation, Sylvia came to cause a scene. A pregnant woman has a certain kind of threatening power. Who would dare to make a move when she pretends to be mad or helpless? Luckily, everyone had already heard of my situation, so no one bothered with her. Eventually, having fulfilled my insatiably. After much screaming and rolling on the ground, the school had no choice but to call the police to take her away and added more layers of security. However, half a month later, Sylvia appeared at the school gate again. She claimed that she had lost the baby and accused me of being responsible. When I saw Sylvia at the gate, she looked pale and frail, obviously just having miscarried. I reminded her that if she wanted to keep her life, she should head to the hospital immediately and stop bothering me. But instead, she glared at me with a pitiful look in her eyes. "Sonoko, you said you didn't want to be a stepmother. And Lucian made me lose my child. You've already ruined Lucian. Now you're encouraging him to harm my child? I'll make you pay with your life." As I walked closer, the woman raised the knife she was holding toward me. But thankfully, a nearby security guard intervened just in time. Without the child in her belly as a shield, Sylvia was now facing charges for attempted harm. It was clear she would be sentenced. They were truly a perfect match. Both insane in their own ways. No matter what happened, they always seemed to blame me. The excuse of not wanting to be a stepmother, such an obvious mockery, was still used by the man as a justification. If Lucian really listened to me, would he be able to take his own life when I asked him to disappear? Later, during the new batch of high school seniors orientation meeting, I was invited by my alma mater to give a speech as an outstanding student representative. In the past, it was always Lucian who was invited as the guest speaker. This time, however, he had become the target of public scorn after the money for retake scandal was exposed. Now, he was the rat everyone wanted to stomp on. After the speech, Lucian waited for me at the school gate. "Sorry, Sonoko. I didn't know Sylvia came to your school and caused a scene. I didn't know this crazy woman would use her pregnancy as an excuse to do something so absurd. I'm really glad I got rid of the child in time." I stared at him in shock, unable to believe what I was hearing. "Isn't it your parents who like kids? Didn't you get engaged to her so she could have children for the Lucian family? Why did it end up with her using the child to threaten you?" Lucian seemed to remember something and gritted his teeth. "I thought I had just drunk too much and accidentally slept with her. But later, I found out she drugged me on purpose to make me lose control. Since she dared to do this to me, she should bear the consequences." The malice and murderous intent in his eyes felt so familiar. In my past life, this was exactly how he looked at me before he killed me. I never expected that in this life. Despite his miserable situation, he still wanted to kill someone. This time, however, his target was Sylvia. How could Lucian, who had done so much for Sylvia, harbor so much resentment toward her? You repeated your exams for 3 years, was it because you liked her? Lucian's gaze flickered. And he was filled with rage. Although I couldn't resist her temptation in the past and tasted the forbidden fruit for the first time, I've realized recently that she's been using me all along. It turned out that every time Sylvia asked Lucian for money, it was to help her brother. Sylvia, as an adopted daughter, was having an affair with her brother. When she claimed she needed a dowry for her marriage, it was all a scam by Sylvia's family to deceive him. She's a promiscuous woman. Who knows how many other men she's been flirting with besides her brother? I don't even know if the child in her womb is mine. Forget it. I'm done with her. This was a result I never expected. I had no idea Sylvia had so many secrets. But even if she had fooled Lucian, what difference did it make? Could it change the fact that the man killed me in my past life? If I had decided not to interfere with his retake this life, I might have ended up dying at his hands again. Suddenly, I felt a small sense of relief. They were getting exactly what they deserved, a perfect match of scumbag and slut. Later, my boss entrusted me with more responsibilities. And I began working overtime regularly. Somehow, Lucian caught wind of it. He actually started showing up near my office every day, bringing me late-night snacks. His sudden devotion became a running joke among my co-workers. Wow. Sonoko. Where did you find such a thoughtful boyfriend? He's not only handsome, he even brings you food. You're so lucky. Every time he heard comments like that, Lucian couldn't hide the smirk tugging at his lips. But I tirelessly explained that I was proudly, unequivocally single. Then he started appearing as if he had nothing better to do. And no matter how many times I tried to get rid of him, he wouldn't leave. With so many eyes around the office, I couldn't afford to lose my temper at him in public. At first, I planned to just ignore him. But the man kept escalating, probing my boundaries again and again. I finally dragged him to a quiet corner downstairs, unable to hold back my frustration anymore. Lucian, heading fulfilled my obsession. Can you stop disgusting me? Keep haunting me like this, and I swear I'll call the police. He looked utterly unfazed. What did I do that you want to get me arrested? I'm just bringing you food. Don't feel pressured because I treat you too well and doing it of my own free will. I was out of options. So I turned to my all-powerful father for help. He didn't come himself, he sent a young, handsome guy named Sean instead. Whenever Lucian showed up with food, Sean would appear with flowers and gifts, never repeating the same thing twice. Next to an ordinary lunchbox, flowers and expensive presents naturally drew more attention and envy. My colleagues gushed, "Damn, Sonoko. You're swimming in blessings. The men chasing you are all top tier. The first one's considerate. The second one's rich. And both are easy on the eyes. So? Which one are you choosing?" I glanced at my father's designated savior and winked at Sean. Obviously the second one. With money, I won't have to work overtime every day. What about you guys, who would you choose? They chimed in immediately that Sean, with his good looks and wealth, was the superior choice. Lucian's face collapsed on the spot. After delivering meals for days on end without fail, he packed up early and left for the first time. Truly, heaven fulfilled my obsession. The older the ginger, the spicier it is. I marveled at my father's brilliant idea. If Lucian didn't see the difference laid out in front of him, he really might think he stood a chance with me. There are so many good men in the world, why would I ever settle for someone who had already hurt me? A second-hand disaster? But I had gravely underestimated Lucian's shamelessness. He stopped bringing lunches. But he switched tactics, showing up every day to accompany me to and from work. Or so he said. In reality, he claimed he wanted to rekindle our feelings. Honestly, heading fulfilled way. On several late nights after work, I often find myself replaying the scene from my past life. When he bound me and killed me, I confided in my father about the torment I was feeling. And without hesitation, he dropped everything and began escorting me to and from work every day. Indeed, a father's love is as steadfast as a mountain. He was the greatest source of security I could have ever asked for. One time, Lucian was caught by my father and dragged to the security office. "Lucian, do you think you can keep harassing my daughter without any consequences? Do you take me for a fool?" You got another woman pregnant and got engaged. And yet you still come after my daughter? Can't you have some shame? Lucian let out a low sigh. Red-faced. Claimed he had no ill intentions toward me. Only hoping for my forgiveness. My father spat vehemently. Forgive you? For what? You think just because you're a good-for-nothing unemployed man you can waste my time? I have all the time in the world to make you regret this. You escaped the extortion charge last time. But that doesn't make you untouchable. I'll collect evidence of you stalking my daughter. And when I do, you'll be the one sitting in jail. My father kept watch over me for a week. And Lucian eventually gave up and left the city. Once again, I felt how freeing it was to be rid of him. All my suffering had stemmed from that wretched man. My work was going smoothly. And a year later, I received a raise. That year, I went back to my hometown for the new year. Just in time for Sylvia's release from prison. While my father and I happily enjoyed our reunion dinner and watched the Spring Festival Gala. Suddenly, a stone shattered the window. Looking out the window, we saw Sylvia, holding a stone, throwing it back up at the building. It was New Year's Eve. And we hesitated to call the police, not wanting to disturb their celebration. My father reassured me, saying it was just a minor inconvenience and not to let it ruin the holiday spirit. But soon, the sound of glass shattering drowned out even the fireworks outside. I couldn't hold back anymore and went downstairs to confront the woman. It's Lucian who harmed your child. Why don't you go after him? And why keep targeting me? Sylvia, indignant, snapped back. If you hadn't seduced him, he wouldn't have hurt me. Now I have nothing left. And neither should you. Suddenly, I recalled the crucial point Lucian had made. He doubts the child is his and thinks it's the result of an affair between you and your brother. That's why he harmed the child. Don't blame everything on me. Her eyes widened in shock. And tears started to fall. Lucian really said that? If you don't believe me, why don't you go ask him yourself? The next day, Lucian came to see me, bearing New Year gifts. He had personally knitted a hat, gloves, and a scarf for me, complaining about how difficult it was for a man like him to learn such delicate needlework. But I wasn't impressed. So I tossed everything he gave me straight into the trash. When I found out Sylvia was responsible for smashing the window, he promised he would go back and deal with her, intending to give me some kind of resolution. But when the so-called resolution came, it was that he had sent Sylvia to a psychiatric hospital. The woman had gone mad, questioning him whether he had doubts about the child's paternity, which had caused her to harm the baby. In a fit of rage, she had pushed him down the stairs. This push resulted in Lucian breaking his leg. Lucian's family went into a frenzy, demanding compensation from Sylvia's family, or else they would have her sent back to prison. But Sylvia's family couldn't have cared less about her. They left her to fend for herself. Lucian personally demanded that Sylvia be sent to the psychiatric hospital for an evaluation. Before she was dragged away, the woman cursed him bitterly. Lucian, hadn't so célèbre session. Don't you remember the promises you made to me? You said you'd be good to me for life. You'll pay for betraying me. Lucian ignored her words, insistent on having her taken away. And so, one threat disappeared from my life. But to my surprise, after solving the Sylvia problem, Lucian saw it as an opportunity to earn my favor and came to confess his feelings once again. He cried bitterly in his wheelchair. Sonoko. You see it to Sylvia as a madwoman. I was deceived by her. And that's why I went down the wrong path. I'm sorry for what I did to you. He then began reminiscing about our high school days. How he had helped me get into King Bi. Sonoko. You waited for me for 3 years. I know you can't bear to leave me. Can't you give me one more chance? I've lost a leg. And this is my way of atoning for the past. I couldn't help but smile at how shameless he was. He thought breaking his leg for Sylvia's revenge was a form of penance for me. What he didn't know was that what he owed me wasn't just a leg, it was a life. It was the agony of being stabbed repeatedly. Over and over. I was sent abroad for a work assignment and stayed there for several years. During that time, I managed to completely escape Lucian's harassment. When I returned home, my father sent Sean to pick me up from the airport. He was holding a huge bouquet of sunflowers and eagerly introduced himself. Sonoko. Now that you're of marriageable age, would you consider me? He carried my luggage and led me to the parking lot. Before I could answer, I noticed that the taxi behind us had a familiar driver. It was Lucian. The moment our eyes met, his expression was filled with shock and jealousy. Of course. He must have thought that his future was ruined. He had once been an outstanding student, destined for King Bi. But now he had squandered his future. With no degree to open doors, he was stuck in low-paying jobs. In my past life, he had graduated and joined one of the top 500 companies in the country. After 3 years, he had been promoted, but without me holding him back from repeating his exams. He had become a taxi driver, struggling to make a living. Sean clearly recognized Lucian, his lips curling into a slight smirk. I hear that's your ex-boyfriend? Sonoko. I'm not sure you have the best taste in men. Sean helped me put my luggage in the trunk and then opened the car door for me. His gentlemanly demeanor was in stark contrast to Lucian's crudeness. I took a deep breath of the sunflowers in my arms and then turned to Sean. If it were you, I might consider it. Sean's face lit up with joy, and he immediately reported the good news to my father. A few days later, Lucian came knocking on my door, pretending to fix something. Sonoko, are you really falling for that man, Hooray? You should trust my judgment as a man. He's not serious about you. I rolled my eyes. How could he have the nerve to say such things? What I do is none of your business. We've been broken up for years. So please, stay out of my life. Lucian was furious. A male like him, rich and surrounded by women. Are you sure he'll only care about you? I scoffed. He has a good job and family, money and looks. Even if he's unreliable, can he be worse than you? Lucian looked at me with sincere eyes. Sonoko, don't you see my efforts these years? I've been working multiple jobs, saved money, and got my leg fixed. I'm capable of supporting a family now. Just then, Sylvia appeared, her belly swollen with pregnancy, walking curiously out from behind him. Lucian, now that Sonoko's back, you're abandoning me, aren't you? Lucian really was pathetic, so desperate for attention he couldn't keep his hands to himself. He got on Sylvia pregnant the moment she was discharged from the psychiatric hospital. And now he had the nerve to come here and try to deceive me? I couldn't stop myself from snapping at him. Don't tell me you actually thought you had a chance to get back together with me, and now you're planning to get rid of the baby she's carrying? The spark caught instantly. I turned and walked away without a backward glance. Behind me, Sylvia lunged at him, and the two of them tumbled into a chaotic struggle. That night, the snow fell hard. It buried all the blood and the wreckage. All I heard were police sirens, blaring endlessly into the cold. The next morning, I learned from the news that Sylvia had killed Lucian. Just like the imposter in my previous life, one stab after another. A revenge delivered without hesitation. From that moment on, every grievance between Lucian and me was wiped clean. Bitch! Are you dead yet? My husband Soren's drunken curses pierced through my ears. At 42, the dust from the textile factory had already eroded my lungs. Before I die, I have one regret: giving up on my dream of the college entrance exams 20 years ago, only to marry this worthless man who has beaten me for my entire life. A blinding white light flashed. I suddenly woke up, finding myself at 18 again, staring at the mirror. The calendar read, June 1979. Just 1 month before the college entrance exams. Outside the window, Soren hesitated before speaking. Eloan. I'm going to watch Shanghai Bund on video. In my past life, I had desperately urged him to study, sacrificing my own future to endure a lifetime of suffering. This time, I looked at him coldly. Go ahead. He left in a state of joy, unaware that I had already torn up our marriage agreement in my heart. Living this life again, I was determined to live for myself. As Soren's figure disappeared down the small path by the village, I returned to my desk and unfolded my exam paper. Without his interference, a long-lost sense of focus surged within me. In my previous life, I had dragged him into endless, obsessive studying, only to fail myself. This time, I would not make the same mistake. Just as I concentrated on the questions, hurried footsteps approached from outside the courtyard. Is Eloan home? It was Soren's father. Yes, hadn't so still went session. Soren's father. I replied, calmly putting my pen down. Soren's father entered the room. His face full of worry. Isn't Soren studying with you? He went to watch Shanghai Bund with Bellatrix. What? His face turned red. Is that boy out of his mind? With only a month before the exams. Who has time to watch videos? I shook my head gently and continued working. Soren's father paced back and forth, muttering that this was madness and they'd be finished. Eloan. What's happened to you? He suddenly stopped and stared at me. You used to care so much. Always urging him to study. You worried about him more than we did. Why have you stopped now? I looked up at the old man who had once forced me to give up my education and marry his son. In my past life, I had eagerly pushed Soren to study, only to receive 20 years of contempt and beatings in return. Soren's an adult now. He needs to take responsibility for his own choices. I said calmly. I need to focus on my exams. You used to be so sensible. What's happened to you now? He muttered. I'm going to college. Soren's father. I interrupted firmly. I want to change my fate. Going to college? Soren's father shook his head with a bitter laugh. What's the point of all that education? In the end, you'll just get married and have children anyway. A familiar anger rose from the depths of my heart. In my past life, this very mindset had caused me to abandon my dreams and become the sacrifice of my family. I'm going to take the exams. I stared at him with fierce determination. I'm going to be a college student. I'm going to work in the city and support myself. I won't depend on a man. Not on my family. Soren's father was stunned by my conviction. Sighing after a long pause, you young people. As the sun set, I gently touched the yellowing exam paper. My resolve as firm as iron. The next morning, Soren barged into my room. His face ashen. His eyes bloodshot. Eloan. You fucking bitch. Are you trying to ruin me? Reeking of alcohol. I stared at him coldly and said nothing. My dad beat me last night. You told him I went to watch the video. Didn't you? He accused. Stepping closer. He asked me. And I told him the truth. I replied, wringing out a towel and wiping my face. You weren't like this before. Soren growled, gritting his teeth. You've changed. Changed? I met his eyes. The humiliation of 20 years crashing over me like a tidal wave. I'm just sober now. If you want to study, do it. It's none of my business. You used to care about me so much. Urging me to study. Teaching me. He shouted angrily. Now you turn on me as quickly as you change a page in a book. You're a snob. Back then I was stupid. Now I'm awake, I said quietly. Whore. Ungrateful bitch. Soren's eyes blazed with fury as he knocked over my desk. Textbooks and ink bottles spilled across the floor, and ink splashed onto my white shirt. He glared down at me. I don't need you to get into college. I stared at the mess in front of me. A moment of fear flickering in my heart. But soon, whatever lo sigh. The image of my dying self in a hospital bed and the torment of 20 years flashed before me. My fear disappeared. I stood tall, picking up a book stained with ink, slowly flattening it. Soren. This life. We have no connection. Is that so? He sneered. Have you forgotten our marriage agreement? The arrangement between our families? You're my fiancée. And that's not for you to decide. The marriage agreement. That absurd contract had destroyed my life in the past. To honor it, I hadn't even dared to fill in my college application properly. Marriage agreement? I said slowly. My words deliberate. We'll see about that. Soren's face twisted in anger. He gave me a murderous glare, kicked over the ink bottle, and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I crouched down and began collecting the scattered books. Some were stained with ink. But what was this small obstacle compared to the hell of my previous life? It didn't matter. My fingertips dipped into the cold ink, and a thought grew clearer in my mind. The college entrance exams were my only way to escape the marriage agreement and Soren. If I could pass the exams and lead this village, my fate would be completely different. I whispered to myself, I must pass. I will pass. On the day of the exams, I wore my school uniform neatly, my expression calm and collected. Soren, however, had bloodshot eyes and looked exhausted. The tractor carrying the examined candidates headed toward the county town. Bellatrix linked arms with Soren, smiling provocatively at me. Soren, if you don't pass, just go to Guangzhou. My cousin's factory is hiring. It's much better than farming. In the exam hall, Soren kept glancing back, his fingers trembling. Meanwhile, I answered question after question smoothly. All the mistakes I made in my previous life, I avoided this time. When the exam ended, the proctor was surprised to see me handing in my paper early. Little comrade, don't you want to double-check? No need. I smiled faintly. A month later, the admission notice arrived in the village. LON. 420 points. 31 points above the cutoff for key universities. Department of Chinese Language and Literature. Provincial Normal University. The announcement echoed through the village, and the villagers came to congratulate me. Soren, however, scored only 157 points. Far below even the vocational school cutoff. The loudspeakers at the radio station alternated between two messages. We have a university student in our village. And Soren's family's son failed. The scene of Soren's father chasing him with a pole became a new village spectacle. You bastard. Hanging out with that slut. And now look at you. You didn't even get into vocational school. Soren cried. Dodging, I'm going to Guangzhou. There are more opportunities there. To hell with you. Soren's father kicked his son in the leg. You illiterate fool. Go to Guangzhou and pick up trash. On the fourth morning, Soren appeared at my doorstep, his eyes swollen and red, carrying a bundle and reeking of alcohol. LON. I'm going to Guangzhou with Bellatrix. I put down the embroidery needle. Fine. Good luck to you. He froze. Just like that? I thought you'd stop me like before. I sneered. Go your way. I have no time to bother with you. LON. He suddenly seized my wrist. Everyone in the village says you like me. How did you turn into this? I shrugged his hand off. People change, just look at you. You once wanted to be a scientist in novels. Now you only want to sponge off women for a living. Soren's face darkened. You'll regret this. When I make it big in Guangzhou, don't come begging me. I shot him a contemptuous glance. I'd be thrilled if you became successful, and everyone could see how terrible my taste was. He lunged and overturned my embroidery basket, then slammed the door behind him. On the day the village sent Soren off, Bellatrix wore a red dress and a bow in her hair, smugly linking her arm with his. Soren's father wept as he said goodbye. Soren's mother kept a stiff face and said nothing. Before he left, Soren made sure to shout outside my window, when I make it in Guangzhou. None of you bumpkins can come begging me. Especially you. Elo and Aunt think you can ask me to marry you then. In September I packed a simple bag and prepared to leave the village. Just before I boarded, Soren's father suddenly gripped my hand. Eloan. You've got potential now to forget our engagement. I pulled my hand away. Mr. Soren's father. That's in the past. I'm going to university. I won't marry Soren, he's not right for me. The old bus engine roared. The village receded behind me bit by bit. 20 years of chains were finally broken. The provincial teachers' college gate was more imposing than I'd imagined. Clutching my faded blue cloth bag, I stepped into the school that would change my fate. University life flowed like clear water. I drank in knowledge with hunger, subscribed to people's literature, joined the recitation group, spent every weekend in the library. At the end of term I ranked first in my year. The department head came to speak with me personally. Eloan. Your writing has spirit, you'll do great. I've spoken to the city cultural center. When you graduate they can arrange a post for you. This was so much better than my last life. Half a year passed in a blink. Then an unexpected letter broke the quiet. The envelope was worn, the handwriting crooked, clearly Soren's. I hesitated, but broke the seal. Eloan. Guangzhou is dazzling, skyscrapers everywhere. 100 times better than the county town. I work as a loader at Bellatrix's cousin's factory. I earn over 40 yuan a month. Bellatrix works in the garment plant. We rented a small room. It's not great, But it's better than your old school. I heard you got into the provincial teachers' college? You'll just be a female normal school student and won't you end up teaching back in the countryside after graduation? I've met plenty of rich people here. I'll make it for sure. Don't come asking me for help then. By the way, I'm short on cash, can you lend me 50 yuan to tide me over? I'll pay you back once I'm rich. Soren. November 15. There were a few grease stains on the paper and a sharp smell of tobacco. I snorted and balled the letter up, tossing it in the trash. I'd received dozens of shameless begging letters like this in my previous life. Every time he squandered his money. He remembered he had an honest wife who could be his ATM. Not this life. No way. A month later another letter arrived. This one was almost illegible, the paper blotched with a few brown stains. Lon. Why haven't you replied? You used to obey me, now you turn your back on me? I know you've got money, don't students get allowances each month? Just 50 yuan, will you lend it? If not, I'll go cause trouble at your school. I know which dorm you're in. I'll make the whole campus know you're an ungrateful traitor. Times are rough. Bellatrix's cousin's factory closed and we're out of work. Bellatrix says she's looking for other opportunities. I see her getting closer with some Hong Kong fellow. Nothing good will come of that. It's all your fault. If you'd let me study properly, I wouldn't be reduced to this. 3 days to answer or I'll come straight to your school. Soren. December 20. Anger flared inside me. How dare he threaten me? In my last life Soren used this trick all the time. Pressuring me with my reputation. Knowing I was timid, he would bully me into compliance. This time I wouldn't fall for it. I sat down and wrote a reply. Soren. I received both your letters. Regarding the money. I'm sorry I don't have extra to lend you. My allowance is spent on books and living expenses. There's nothing left. You chose to give up the National College entrance exam and go to Guangzhou with Bellatrix. That was your choice. Don't blame others. As for your threats to make a scene at my school, I've handed your letters to campus security. If you come, you will face administrative detention. My advice is to get a steady job and stop fantasizing about unearned success. Lon. Just after I finished, Silas pushed the door open. Lon. Someone's downstairs asking for you, it looks like trouble. My heart jumped. Is he tall and thin? Triangular eyes? Nasal voice? Yes. Yes. Silas replied warily. He's drunk and shouting that he wants to see you, he's menacing. Soren. He actually dared come. I steadied myself. Don't be afraid. I'll handle it. Down in the open yard Soren stood swaying. Face flushed, obviously drunk. His Zhongshan suit was dirty and creased. His cloth shoes were split. He looked like he'd crawled out of the mud. Only 6 months away, and he'd wasted away to this? Lon. Seeing me, he staggered over. At last he deigned to show his face. I took a step back and said coldly, "What do you want?" "To borrow money." He held out his hand with a self-righteous air. 50. 900 yuan. I laughed coldly. No. Soren's expression shifted. You're lying. You students get allowances every month and grants besides. I heard you won a scholarships F100. So he had been poking around my affairs. That money is mine, why should I give it to you? I met his gaze steadily. My firmness choked him. He exploded with anger. You ungrateful wretch. If I hadn't helped you study, would you have gotten into university? I smiled icily. You helped me study? I taught you to write and read when we were kids. Don't twist the truth. You are not a little sorry. He sputtered. Beside himself. You've changed. Going to a place like that makes you look down on people. You won't lend it? He barked. I'll make a scene here and let the whole school know you're ungrateful. With that, he really did start shouting, look. Everyone. Lon refuses her fellow villager, got big and now she disowns us. Students gathered. Whispers and pointing followed. This was one of his usual tricks. And I had endured such humiliation countless times in my past life. I turned to the students watching the scene and said, "This man is a drunk from my village who has been bothering me for a long time. Ignore him." Then I turned to Soren. "If you don't leave now, I'll call security." Soren, caught off guard by my firmness, froze in place. At that moment, a teacher from the department rushed over and scolded. What's going on here? How dare you cause trouble in the school? Soren's drunkenness instantly faded, and fear showed on his face. Security arrived soon after. Two burly men grabbed him and started dragging him out. Eloin. Wait for it. He turned back and glared at me fiercely. I won't let this go. You wait. I watched him being dragged out of the school gate. A complex mix of emotions swelling inside me. I had suffered too much humiliation like this in my previous life. But now, for once, I could hold my head high. That night, Silas quietly asked me, Eloin, was that really your fellow villager? He looked so fierce. I sighed. He was once a classmate. Went astray. And now he's ended up in a bad place. Did he threaten you? Should we tell the counselor? Zhao Yu asked with concern. I shook my head. It's fine. He won't be causing any more trouble. I didn't tell them that in my past life. Soren had eventually become my husband and tortured me for 20 years, turning me into a mere shadow of myself. After that day, Soren never showed up again. I continued with my studies, throwing myself wholeheartedly into my work. In my third year, one of my articles was published in the provincial literary magazine, causing quite a stir. The poplar trees by the unnamed lake became a representative work of campus literature. Even the provincial newspaper ran a story about it. For years later, I graduated with outstanding grades and was assigned to work at the city's cultural center. At first, I only handled simple tasks like organizing documents and preparing events. But I was diligent and eager to learn, so I was quickly transferred to the creative team. In the mid-1980s, with the wave of economic reform and opening up, I was transferred to the city's publishing house as an editor. My excellent performance in my work soon made me an integral part of the team. I was assigned a small two-bedroom apartment in a block building and bought a sewing machine and a Phoenix bicycle. In those days, this was already considered a fairly respectable life. In the winter of 1983, I received a letter from my village. The letter was written by my mother, her handwriting crooked and full of anxiety. Eloin. Soren has come back. He's terribly sick. They say it's his lungs. The people from Guangzhou sent him back. His parents are crying, saying Bellatrix ran off with someone else, leaving Soren all alone in Guangzhou. I put the letter down and gazed out at the snowflakes drifting outside. You reap what you sow. Soren. Now you are finally tasting the consequences of your own actions. Unexpectedly, I received more details from Myrna, who had come to the provincial city to visit relatives. Eloin. You're doing so well now. Sitting in an office wearing a suit. You're way ahead of those who ran away. Myrna grinned, holding a basket of eggs. Soren's in a terrible state. He got completely swindled by that Bellatrix. I poured her a cup of hot tea. What happened? After they went to Guangzhou, there was no cousin opening a factory. It was all a lie. Myrna clicked her tongue, full of gossip. Bellatrix's so-called cousin only ran a small workshop in a shabby part of the city. They made fake brand clothes day and night. Soren spent his days delivering goods to the vendors, working like a dog, from dawn to dusk. I silently sighed to myself. I had suspected this all along. The worst part, Myrna lowered her voice, is that Bellatrix met a boss from Hong Kong. While Soren was delivering goods, she ran off with all their savings. She didn't even leave a word. Soren searched for her for months. But living in such a damp place, he contracted a lung disease. If it weren't for Julio's son, who met him while working in Guangzhou and brought him back, he might have been dead by now. I listened quietly, my heart unaffected. I had expected this to happen. After all, in my past life, it was Bellatrix who first fell out of love and abandoned him. He lies in bed, coughing all day, so thin it's just skin and bones. His parents had to sell the family's only pig to pay for his treatment. Myrna sighed. It's such a waste. If he had listened to your advice and studied properly, he wouldn't have ended up like this. I smiled faintly, saying nothing. In my past life, I didn't advise him. Instead, I let him chase after Bellatrix. And that led him down a path from which he could never return. Oh, and by the way, Myrna suddenly whispered, I heard Soren keeps shouting your name in his sleep. He says, Eloin. I was wrong. And it scares his mother so much she's crying. My heart jolted. How familiar those words sounded. In my past life, it was always his resentment toward me. How could he be calling out to admit his mistakes now? Eloan. You've become so successful now. Have you considered going back to see him? Myrna winked. Her tone full of suggestion. Soren's parents are still thinking of you. They said if you hadn't stopped him back then, he wouldn't have gone down the wrong path. I set the cup down. My voice firm. Myrna. This has nothing to do with me. Soren chose his path. And he'll have to walk it. Even if he's on his knees. Myrna's eyes widened in shock. She clearly hadn't expected the once docile Elo and to say such a thing. After seeing Myrna off, I stood by the window, lost in thought. The snow was falling heavier, covering the entire city. A thin layer of frost had formed on the window pane. I gently traced a clear line with my finger. That night, I dreamed of the 18-year-old Soren. He wore a clean blue shirt. His face handsome. Standing in the morning light as he recited Chairman Mao's poems. The sunlight glistened on his face. He turned around and flashed me a brilliant smile. Eloan. I got into Tingxua. I woke up with a start. Snowflakes were drifting outside the window. An inexplicable pain in my chest made me restless. I couldn't shake off the image of that young man. No, Eloan. You can't soften your heart. Remember how he treated you in your past life. Remember the torment and humiliation of those 20 years. I grabbed the book beside my pillow and forced myself to continue reading. At work, I became known as a workaholic, eagerly taking on the dirtiest and most tiring tasks, never complaining about overtime or late nights. In 1985, the book series New Rural Areas, which I had edited, caused a stir across the province and was awarded as an excellent publication. That year, I had just turned 25, already standing at a height that my peers could never reach. As for Soren, no one knew whether he was alive or dead. Was he still lying in a bed in the village, coughing up blood? The old bus rattled toward the village I hadn't seen in 10 years. Outside the window, vast fields rolled in waves of golden yellow under the summer sun. Eloan. As soon as I stepped off the bus, Leora, Myrna's daughter, rushed over to embrace me. The village head is ready. They're going to give you a welcome feast. At the village entrance, a banner had been strewn up, warmly welcoming Comrade Eloan back to the village for an inspection. The village head and a group of officials greeted me warmly, calling me the pride of the village. Last time around, at this moment, I was sweating on a textile factory assembly line. This time, I was welcomed back as the director of a publishing house. At the welcome dinner, the village head kept praising me. Eloan. Your parents must be so blessed, he said. Unlike some people, who didn't study properly and came back a useless mess. I knew he was referring to Soren. You two were childhood sweethearts, weren't you? The former team leader chimed in. If he hadn't run off with a city girl, you'd have been married by now. I smiled faintly. Fate is determined by the heavens. You can't force it. The village committee had organized a special reunion for the returning educated youth. At the event, former educated youth gathered, greeting each other warmly. Leora whispered to me. I heard Soren's back, he's been drinking all day. Refuses to listen to anyone. The former village head took the stage, raising his voice for everyone to hear. Eloan is the golden phoenix that flew out of our village. At only 30, she's become the director of a publishing house, married an engineer, and lives in a brick house. Thunderous applause followed, and I modestly thanked them. My gaze swept the room, but I didn't spot Soren. Just as the party was in full swing, a commotion erupted at the door. Isn't that Bellatrix? She's got the nerve to come back? A woman with dyed blonde hair, heavy makeup, and chewing gum stood at the entrance. Looking around, the moment she saw me, she swayed her hips and walked over. Well, if it isn't Eloan. I heard you've become a big shot in the city, how impressive. I met her gaze calmly. Long time no see, Bellatrix. I'm doing well now too. She sat down beside me. A strong scent of perfume filling the air. I've opened a beauty shop in Shenzhen, business is booming. Just came back from Hong Kong. And my business partner there wants to invest in a chain store. Around us, people exchanged knowing glances, clearly skeptical of her claims. I heard you married an engineer? Bellatrix's eyes flashed with jealousy. I've had several factory managers chasing after me. But I wouldn't bother with these country bumpkins. Did you hear Soren's back too? I interrupted her boasting. Bellatrix's expression soured as she sneered. That loser? He's only good for running errands and delivering goods in Guangzhou. Can't even find a real job. I was so good to him back then. Almost ended up with him. What a fool I was. I laughed coldly. Yeah. You have such high standards, always chasing after rich men. Eloan, she said, suddenly changing her tone. We're both strong women who've made something of ourselves. Let's keep in touch. I need someone to handle my account show about helping me out. The salary's at least 300 to 400 a month. No thanks. I'm doing well. You're still as stubborn as ever. Bellatrix sneered. Back then, when Soren was chasing you, you were just like this. In the end, I got there first. Though he turned out to be a waste, at least I got a taste of city life. In my past life, I would have quietly endured these words, secretly crying when I got home. But in this life, I found it utterly laughable. Bellatrix, I said, looking her straight in the eyes. I'm grateful for you getting there first. You helped me avoid a disaster. Otherwise, I might have ended up just like Soren, the laughingstock of the village. Bellatrix's face shifted, ready to retort. But just then, there was more commotion at the door. A burly, beer-bellied man with a bald head strode in, fuming with anger. Bellatrix, what the hell are you doing here? Julian, still waiting, get your ass over here. The room fell silent. And Bellatrix's face turned ashen. I was just catching up with an old classmate. Catching up my ass. The bald man yelled. I pay you to entertain clients, not to chat with these bumpkins. Get moving. Bellatrix, wilted like a frostbitten eggplant, practically fled in shame. The bald man grabbed her and pulled her out the door. The room exploded in whispers. What a disgrace. Of course, she wasn't running a legitimate business. Just pretending to be important. Compared to Eloan, one's a pearl, and the other's worse than fish eyes. Several former classmates gathered around to comfort me. Eloan, heading so seldom. Don't pay any attention to that woman, she's just jealous of you. Good thing you didn't end up with Soren. Or now. I smiled and reassured them. Let the past be the past. We're here to have fun, not dwell on old things. After the event, I walked alone by the small river at the village entrance, watching the sunset. Suddenly, footsteps approached from behind. I turned and saw a thin, hunched figure in the moonlight. Even though he had become a shadow of his former self, I still recognized Soren immediately. Eloan. Under the moonlight, Soren's figure was frail and hunched, like a starving stray dog. I was wrong. His voice was hoarse, and his eyes glistened with tears. Wrong about what? I asked coldly. Soren lowered his head, rubbing his hands together. I shouldn't have been fooled by Bellatrix. I shouldn't have gone to Guangzhou. Suddenly, he lunged forward and grabbed my wrist. Please. Save me. My lung disease is getting worse. I don't have much time left. My parents have completely given up on me and cut off all support. I yanked my hand away. Why should I care? You should go find Bellatrix. Wasn't she just bragging about her success? At the mention of Bellatrix, Soren's eyes burned with anger. That bitch. She took all my money in Guangzhou and then hooked up with some Hong Kong boss. She came to see me later and called me a useless failure. I felt disgust rise in me as I looked at his twisted expression. So why are you here asking me for help? Soren immediately plastered a fake smile on his face. Eloan. I heard you're a cadre in the city now and married an engineer. We're childhood sweethearts. Right? Lend me some money, 500 yuan will do and will do. No. I rejected him firmly. Soren froze. Then his face turned red with humiliation. You've changed. You used to care about me. I have changed. I admitted calmly. I'm 25 now, about time I learned my lessons. He gritted his teeth. Then his expression turned pathetic again. Eloan. I really know I was wrong, give me another chance. We grew up together. We're meant to be. I couldn't help but laugh. Meant to be? Soren. Do you remember when you left with Bellatrix all those years ago? Without even a second glance? Now that you're in trouble, you think of me? He was speechless for a moment. Then suddenly scowled. I heard you're getting married? Yes, Yeving Xianxia. I replied. My fiancé is an engineer at the city's second construction company. Our wedding is next month. No. He shouted angrily. You can't marry anyone else. You belong to me. He continued. His voice rising. The whole village knew you had a crush on me. And your parents even agreed. He pulled out a crumpled marriage contract from his jacket. Marked with both family seals. It was the same document that had bound me to him in my past life. See this? Soren gloated. This is an official marriage contract. By law. You're my fiancé. You can't marry anyone else. I sneered, grabbing the paper from his hands and tearing it to shreds on the spot. How dare you tear the marriage contract? Soren's face turned ashen. His eyes wide with shock. The law doesn't recognize such feudal marriage contracts anymore. I said calmly. I have a fiancé now. I hope you respect my choice. Soren's eyes darkened with malice. If you won't marry me, you won't marry anyone else. With a twisted sneer, he lunged at me. His fists clenched. Bitch. It's you who turned me into this. I'll show you whether this sickly body can still deal with you. He swung a punch at me. But the version of me 10 years stronger was no longer afraid. I looked straight into his eyes and laughed coldly. Soren. Is this all you've got? His stance faltered. And for a moment, he hesitated. You think that just because I'm sick, I can't handle you? He blustered, trying to sound threatening. Nothing. I said with a faint smile. Look behind you. Soren, suspicious, turned around and a heavy brick struck him on the head with a loud thud. He grunted and collapsed, unconscious. Behind me stood a group of villagers. The old village leader with his cane. And Giulio, the elderly man, holding the bloody brick in his hand. Eloan, are you all right? The old village leader asked with concern. I shook my head. I'm fine. Thank you. Everyone. The old leader marveled. Eloan, you're truly a female's Ada Yang. How did you know that lazy man was up to no good? You even warned us to watch out. And here you are. Proving it to be true. I smiled unfearily. A snake's nature never changes. In my past life, he would often resort to violence and forced me to submit. I had long seen through his true nature. The villagers hoisted Soren up and dragged him toward the village office. This time, we'll teach him a lesson. The old leader fumed. How dare he lay a hand on our village's pride? He must be out of his mind. The villagers angrily chimed in, lock him up for a few days. Teach him a lesson. Don't ever let him get near Eloan again. Watching Soren being dragged away, I felt no emotion whatsoever. Once a nightmare, now he was nothing more than a stray dog at the mercy of others. Under the escort of the villagers, I safely returned home. That night, I heard shouting outside my yard. Soren's father was crying desperately. Please, let my son go. His father is lying in bed, and our whole family can't survive like this. Listening to his cries, I thought of the demon who had tortured me to death in my past life. Now, let him taste the bitterness of losing his freedom. Tomorrow, the village committee would hold a meeting to decide how to deal with Soren. I had already heard that the old leader planned to use this opportunity to set an example and restore order in the village. This time, I had completely severed all ties with Soren. The next morning, the village committee held an emergency meeting. I hadn't planned to attend. But the old leader insisted. Eloan, you're the victim. You must be there. The meeting room was filled with village officials. Outside, Soren's father was kneeling with a pile of documents, crying and begging to come in. My son's father is sick. Please, let Soren go. The old leader remained expressionless and ordered someone to keep her out. What's all the fuss about? You raised this beast yourselves. Inside the meeting, the old leader severely criticized Soren's family. How high was Soren's family's status in this village? His father, a high school graduate, was the accountant. He had the highest level of education in the village and lived a life of privilege. But look at the son they raised: no ambition, beating women, and even trying to force a marriage. They brought shame to this village. The villagers unanimously agreed they should be punished. Lock him up for a month. Don't ever let him get near Eloan again. Just as the discussion was heating up, the meeting room door was pushed open. A tall, handsome man walked in, dressed in a suit, his expression determined. "Silas. My fiancé." I gasped in surprise and stood up. "What are you doing here?" Silas strode over to me, taking my hand tightly. "I got a call from the village, saying you were being bullied. I came here as soon as I could." He turned to the old leader. "I am Eloan's fiancé, Silas. I demand that the village committee severely punish the man who attacked her." The old leader looked at Silas, then at me, his face full of approval. "What a good son-in-law." Silas scanned the room, his voice steady and strong. "We're getting married next month. Eloan is the most precious person in my life. From elementary school to high school, she has been diligent and hardworking. She got into university and worked diligently to get to where she is today. No one is allowed to harm her, including anyone from her past." My eyes welled up with tears. In my past life, Soren had tormented me for 20 years. And no one had ever defended me like this. The old leader made the final decision: Soren attacked first. He will be locked up for 3 days, fined 200, and will not be allowed to come within 50 meters of Eloan. All special privileges his family enjoyed in the production team are revoked. No more priority for accounting, family allocations, everything's gone. Soren's father, outside the door, heard the verdict and began wailing uncontrollably. For years, his family had enjoyed various privileges in the village. But now, all of that was gone. Silas and I stepped out of the conference room, and he gently stroked my face. "Were you scared?" I leaned against his shoulder and shook my head. "With you by my side, I'm not afraid of anything." He wrapped his arm around my shoulder. "Let's go home. Your parents are so worried." As we passed the detention room, Soren saw us and suddenly lunged at the iron bars, screaming, "Eloan, you'll never get away with this." Silas fixed him with a cold, piercing gaze. "If you ever disrespect my wife again, you won't see the sunrise tomorrow." Soren shrank back, cowed by Silas's intensity, and slunk to the corner. From that moment, I completely let go of the past. Silas and I returned to the city and started our new life together. Our wedding was simple yet full of warmth, just two people in love, understanding parents, and true friends. In my career, I continued to steadily advance in the publishing house. And not long after, I was promoted to vice president. At home, Silas and I shared a deep and loving bond, and we had a smart, adorable daughter. As for Soren and his family, after he was released, I heard he had become a complete wreck, drowning himself in alcohol and causing trouble. Soren's father was relieved of his accounting duties and fell seriously ill, passing away shortly after. Soren's father went from door to door, desperately trying to find his son a job. But who would hire a drunkard? The villagers said it was karma. Many had once envied his family, but now no one wanted anything to do with them. In the winter of 1996, I heard that Soren died in an unfinished building on the outskirts of the county, frozen to death. At that time, I had just been promoted to vice president of the provincial publishing house and had already achieved success. When I heard of his death, there was not even a ripple in my heart. I simply said, "You reap what you sow." As for Bellatrix, I later heard she had fallen to the lowest of lows, working as a massage girl in the county, catering to truck drivers. Eventually, having fulfilled my obsession. After contracting a disease that made her unable to work, her boss sold her off to Southeast Asia, and from then on, she disappeared without a trace. In 2000, I was appointed vice director of the Provincial Department of Culture, becoming one of the youngest female directors in the province. On my 40th birthday, Silas gave me an expensive fountain pen, smiling as he said, "I remember you once said you wanted to write your memoir." I laughed. "What's there to write?" "Of course there's something," he replied, gazing at me lovingly. You came from the countryside and, with your own effort, climbed to this position. That alone is a legendary story. Our daughter chimed in from the side. Mom is the best. Our school even uses you as a role model. I stroked the pen, feeling a surge of emotion. 2 years ago, on this very day, I had already died in pain and bitterness. But in this life, I have career, family, haven't fulfilled Xianxia, and love. I have true happiness. All of this, only because at the age of 18, I bravely said to Soren, "Go ahead. If you want to see it, then go see it." At that moment, my fate was forever changed. Everyone is the master of their own destiny. The path you choose will determine the outcome. I chose to live for myself. And in the end, I found fulfillment in life. End of the story.